What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Two Lost Office Hours. This is our first live stream for the new year, so we are going to kick this off in a very positive way. We got to set the tone. We got to set the tone for 2025. Joe, what's up?
What's up, man?
I was Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Let me just make sure we are situated on Instagram and we are good to go. Boom. Let me try to pick up my energy. Like I said, I gotta set the tone for 2025. I gotta pick up my energy a bit. I told myself that one of the things that I wanted to do was just become a much better presenter, better podcaster, better live streamer, what have you. So I gotta, like I said, I gotta set the tone for that for 2025. Joe, how you feeling?
Dude, I'm fired up. Jan 6th. I was ready to go Jan 2. I'm fired up for 2025.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are grumpy about the new year. It's like, I don't need a new year to start things off fresh. And it's like, okay, that's cool. If you don't need a new year, if you're always on, you're always in the mode, that's fine. But a lot of the world around us resets, right? Like when the calendar flips, like budgets flip, like a lot of other people around us have like fresh new energy or things reset. So, it's always, it should be positive. It should be positive energy going into the new year.
Absolutely. So the record strikes 0-0.
Indeed. So before we kick this off, Joe, why don't you just let people know a little bit about your background and just let them know why they should listen to you for the next 40 to 50 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's up to y'all, but so I'm Joe Gallo. I've been in marketing and public relations for just about a decade. I come from the world of brand marketing, alcohol, spirits, nightlife, working on brands such as the Macallan, Jägermeister, Patron, being on the ground early on in Hudson Whiskey, doing the PR marketing for them until they went full over to William Grant and Sons. I always had a huge passion for music. I found there was a really big divide of how brands are built and toolkits of how artists are built and how the music industry operates. So a couple years ago, I was like, well, I want to start, building brands in music and building artists like brands. So I kind of switched over to a little bit more of the management, public relations, integrated marketing world. And I'm still consulting for a bunch of spirits companies and like basically just, shit I find interesting. So, yeah.
No, so I literally had our first team meeting this morning with my team, and I was basically telling them how, a lot of people from the outside looking in think that the music industry is like this super forward-looking industry that's on the cutting edge of things, when in fact we're kind of last to the party in a lot of regards, and you can simply like just take things from other industries and apply it to the music industry, and people in the music industry like, wow, that's amazing. Like, where did you get that? And it's like people in other industries have been thinking that way or using that tool or thing for a very long time. I always use the example of just like websites, right? Like artists should not be looking at other websites. Artists should not be looking at other artists' websites for ideas. I mean, there's probably a few here and there that are really like understand how to build their website. But if you want to sell merch on a website, you should be looking at the people that sell merch or clothing like full time. You should be looking at the Gap and other independent brands that are super successful. So yeah, a lot of ideas, or maybe you disagree. Would you agree with that sentiment? Ideas outside the industry, bring them into the music industry, and you'll look like a star.
I mean, like, understatement of the millennium that the music industry, like, the first thing when I noticed, I was like, what is going on here? Like, right. You have these like big companies who like can't even meet your audience like where they are. They don't talk music as a whole, and this is like my big gripe is they don't talk or look to any other industries. Every other industry is like collaborating. You have spirits in the tech world who are working together. You have spirits and, music. You have like CPG, and they're working and doing collaborations with fashion products. Music has been so far behind that. And that's why they're on the losing end of the streaming wars. That's why artists are on the losing end of data ownership, because the leaders in the music industry aren't going out, and it's very insular, and that's why they're getting their lunch eaten. That's why you're seeing all these layoffs.
Yeah, yeah, no. So, I mean, because obviously I didn't start in the music industry. I started more so in financial services. And then my last job before I got laid off, I was a management consultant, which was cool because I got to, work with a lot of different companies in different industries and just kind of see how they move. So it took me a while just to adjust to some of the things that happen in the music industry. You got to have more patience. It's just, sometimes ridiculous, but we're here. Now I'm stuck. So,
Yeah, right.
but let's just talk about like the way you've structured your business. And I think it's makes a lot of sense because everybody's role evolves over time, right? Nobody can just do the same thing and continue to be successful. Like the manager's role has evolved. Um, Lawyers, I think, have to evolve or have had to evolve, even though they probably were the most reluctant position to evolve over the years. But like, especially, and with PR, right? Like when you just talked about your service, you talked about a lot of things that you do, and I think a lot of services you have to really cater to today's independent artists. Can you talk about how you think about your business, how you structure your business, and like the services you feel like you have to provide in order to keep up with how the music industry is changing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, it's definitely had quite the evolution from where I started. I started my company 3 years ago. It was a public relations, really like only. What I noticed was a lot of artists and a lot of music companies are just like PR is like a marketing 2.0. Like marketing 1.0 is the basics. And like, there's kind of no point of having a publicist. And this is like crazy. I'm like, not selling. You got to have the frameworks of marketing first before you do the publicity. So, I came on board with some PR clients. And then I was like, well, what are we PRing? Like, there's no message. There's no like brand overview. There's no like objectives, and everybody, I've noticed the music industry is very like what's the look, but it's like you got to have a business objective before we go and get that, like the good looks. Like you can get a Rolling Stone exclusive. It's like, who gives a shit if you don't even have a brand DNA or like the things in place to maximize that opportunity. So I shifted my business, then to management and booking. I, did a lot of live events when I was on the spirit side. I was seeing a lot of misses of how people were promoting because they didn't have those 1.0 marketing things in place. And with publicity as well, like we got to do those 1.0 things. So my business has kind of shifted where it's, getting that foundation, that strong foundation. And then it's like, okay, then let's talk about like publicity, but it's like, we got to get the basics down first.
Yeah. And for you, like, who do you want to work? Do you want to work with more music companies? You want to work with independent artists? You want to work with executives? Like where would you feel like is most of interest to you to work with, or is it everyone?
Yeah, so I'm pretty all over the place with like my interests, and I think like that's almost the beauty. I think in a lot of the music industry, everybody is like, this is what they do. I think, to what I said earlier, integration across a lot of different things, you actually learn more.
Yeah.
So right now, my client rosters, I have one client that I artist manage, King Coyote, out of Portland, Maine. I do now the integrated marketing and business development, which is marketing 1.0 for Ray Daniels Presents. And then additionally, I'm doing, I've done in the past a lot of like publicity for music business executives. So actually helping get these executives out to the general business world. Like we love Billboard, we love all the music trades. Like it's certainly an important part of the story. But for the music industry to evolve at the way it needs to, we need to start going to Forbes, to Black Enterprise, to like Fortune. We need to meet the rest of the world where they are. We live in everybody's very interested in music. Like I tell people about what I do and they're always like, this is like, they ask me a lot of questions. They're generally like, we need to go meet them there. And so I work with anybody who's interested in meeting, that could be an independent artist. That could be a music business executive. That could be a podcaster like Ray. it really depends, but who has that shared vision of let's like think a little bigger here and like let's run ourselves like we would like Patron, how Patron Tequila runs itself.
Yeah. So on the management side, working with King Coyote, was that something that you set out to do? Because a lot of times managers become managers not by accident, but it just kind of happens because like I didn't set out to be a manager. We started a label and I just felt like I had the tool set and some of the foundational skills to be good at management, and just kind of fell into it and kind of grew together. How did your foray into management start? Was it intentional, or did you just realize, man, I got this tool set and it probably can apply it to being a great manager?
Yeah, it was kind of that 2.0 to 1, like 2.0 of publicity into 1.0 of like, hey, we got to like set a foundation. So, with King Coyote, like his music was there. I literally was surfing, got done, had a bunch of beers, ran into this bar with a couple buddies, and he was playing. I was like, dude, this guy's like fucking good. And from there, we kind of got chatting, and I was like, dude, send me some original stuff. And I was really inspired by it. First of all, like the music was incredible. And I was kind of asking him like, what's going on? Like, you're so talented. Like, what's kind of going on? And then from there, it's like, how can we build a brand around that? So like, I'm a marketing guy. So he's a surfer. We kind of like, he had a Rincon, Puerto Rico surf sticker. And I was like, dude, Rincon, like I live like 30 minutes from there. I live in Isabela, Puerto Rico. And basically we kind of shared like his vibe was very in that. We had a lot of similar values overlaps. And so I was like, let's build like a marketing like brand world for him, like King Coyote Surf Motel. It was very like naturally it kind of happened. And then I was like, well, I can help out with booking. It's just filling people in a bar or live music venue and selling drinks and selling tickets. It's just marketing 101.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it evolved. And, now we're a year in, he signed onto RCA's Slumbo Labs. He's like selling a bunch of tickets in the Northeast, and we're all DIY. We own all of our data for who's coming to our shows. So it's like setting up that framework, but it's a lot of fun. It's definitely like a hard gig. I'm sure Dame, it's like kind of like you got to be a little like, sick in the head to do it, but it's like it's definitely pretty awesome when you have like a packed room and they're like singing tunes that you like helped get out there. That's definitely the best part.
Yeah. Let's you just said that you're pretty much doing the touring side yourself, and you're owning the data, right? Can you dive into that, because it's important? Data is essentially gold these days. Having that data is so important for independent artists as they're growing their career. When it comes to the show size, like what tools are you guys using, and how are you collecting data? How are you, just how are you moving? How are you developing the touring side of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it is, you got to kind of like zoom out and kind of understand like the point of what a live music venue is. So I come from the world of nightlife. The only reason that like bars do live music is it because it sells drinks. Drinks are the most high up markup of any restaurant in the world. And so knowing that, you had like, and I'm coming from that world. And then I started booking shows and people were like, yeah, we get like a 70-30 door split. And I'm like, wait, so I sell the tickets. I don't know who is coming to the show. I have no way of connecting with them after. Like I can have a general idea. And then we sell your bar to make money. And then we get only 70% of like the tickets when we like do it all. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is like a bad deal. And so kind of from there, I was like, well, how, at the end of the day, we want to know who our fans are. Like that's the key to the game. Like Spotify's top artists, like the reason why Spotify is so successful is because they like, we don't know who had us in their top 5. We just know how many people they were. So like we can't have a continued conversation with them to get them out to a show, to get them to have them buy a t-shirt. So, you can look to programs like we do DIY shows, like we use, like you can use an Eventbrite or a Humanitix, and knowing what the venue wants. So like the venue's goal is to sell drinks. Like if you have like an Eventbrite or a Humanitix or one of these accounts, you can go and, you know, if it's in your key market, be like, hey, I can bring 50 people out to Boston, just for example. Finding that small cap room, you know, being like, I will like, you know, pack it out for you guys. But I ask as part of that, this is a negotiation tool to be like, hey, can we run the tickets for it? We'll do what we got to do. The smart business owners, the smart venue owners will understand, because it's like they want to sell drink tickets, and you're also assuming some risk maybe financially. Yeah. But then after the show, look, you got 50 people there. You know who bought the tickets. And look, you can put them on your emailing list and you can scale that market. So, you know, thinking about what the other person wants in terms of like from a venue outreach perspective, and then having the tools in place, whether that's an Eventbrite, Humanitix, and then capturing that data, keeping that conversation going with those fans. Like, that's how you do it. Like, you know, I that's what's worked for us. So.
Gotcha. So let people know, like, where is, size wise, King Coyote? Like, what? How big is he? Because some people might be like, oh, it's easy for him to pull out people because he's super big. But how big is King Coyote?
Yeah, so we started out, he had 30 monthly listeners at December of last year. You know, he probably could draw about, you know, 50 tickets in Portland, his home market, Portland, Maine. And you know, now, you know, in a year, we built the business knowing that streaming doesn't make us any money. Shows are the most profitable thing. And so like, we should be focused on that. So we actually was like, now he's playing, you know, in Portland, he's playing there February 1st at Maine Craft Distilling, and it's a 250 cap room. It's in a month. We're already at, you know, 125 tickets that will definitely sell out in advance, you know, and then we're building other markets. So, you know, in the Northeast, it's like between 50 to 80 tickets. And that's just in a year. And the tools we use are like kind of what I was alluding to with that data, you know, for some venues outside that they run tickets, Facebook ads, dude, meta ads, like, it's like the return on investment is very good. TikTok ads, the cost per click is like of the lowest. And then also like calendar listings, like reaching out to the local radio, like you got to get scrappy, like reaching out to like, you know, people in the community, like Facebook groups of like the neighborhood of Portland, Maine, like that kind of stuff to get people out. We know the show is great. When we get people in the door, they stay. So the hardest part, and I know that there's so many like great artists out here, like getting people in the door is the hardest part of what I've seen of the music industry. So if we can do that, we keep them. And so, you know, now he's doing, you know, 50 to 250, and we're starting to get some festival nods, but you know, it's like, it's doable for everybody. Like if you're good, you know, if you're like working hard and have a good message to share.
Yeah. A lot of people aren't going to put in that work though. So it's definitely not doable for everybody.
Well, then they should probably work another job. That's the job.
But there's a lot of key things that you've mentioned that people should realize, like why this works, right? Number one, you know, what brought you on board or what caught your attention was just the quality of the music. So I'm assuming that there's quality music there, and other people agree that there's quality music there. That's why they're willing to come out to the shows. So that's number one. Number two, you know, recognizing the importance of data and being scrappy and willing enough to like organize that data, make decisions off that data, things like that. Leveraging Facebook ads to promote the shows. So, you know, this is not an easy thing to do, but I just want people to know, like, King Coyote is not this huge artist yet, but you've made significant progress in really just a year, right? And I also want people to know that even though, like what you're saying, the shows is the most profitable part of the business, that's for his artists, right? Like every artist is different depending on where you're at in your career and how you structure your business, right? Because actually we're going to talk about it on the MEC podcast this week, because Russ just made a post. Because even though Russ sells out like sometimes stadium venues, he'll still tell you that his music is the most profitable piece of his business because he streams really well, and he pretty much makes the music himself. So, you know, he gets all the publishing, he's independent. So every artist is different. You about to say something, Joe?
Yeah, kind of to that point. Like, you know, both of us, when we were coming to the game, when I kind of worked in music, I didn't really know anybody in music. So, like, the music industry, especially building an artist, it's like all about kind of creating leverage. The sad reality of it, and this is like not very like good for the health of the industry as a whole, it's like very gate kept, and it's very like people have their favorites. It's not like a meritocracy. So you have to kind of know that, like the Spotify playlist, like that's a tall order to get in without a label. Even with a label, it's a tall order to get in. Going viral on TikTok, like that's a tall order to achieve, and takes a lot of work, and it still might not happen. However, for our business model, you know, it made sense because we were like, hey, people will have to pay attention to us if we start, you know, packing out, you know, getting people to come out to a show. And this is what we always say. Like, we joke, we sell 100 tickets, we make, you know, 3,000, 2,500, 3,000 on a show. Like, that's 1 million streams. And yet the music industry looks and would rather be like, well, they only have like 20,000 streams. It's like, our job is to make money for the artist. And then like you could take that money and invest it into digital marketing for the artist. So it's finding out like what your revenue, like what's going to be like the best ROI. So it could be like, if you're a great songwriter, you're building a portfolio, so you're doing a lot of sessions, like that might be a better way. So like that works for us, to Dame, to your point, but like kind of follow the money, you know what I mean? Like follow like what the ROI is of some of these things that like the industry takes status in, because a lot of them are like not good for the artist, to be honest.
Yeah. So today's episode that we released of the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, we talked about, you know, why it's the best time ever to be an independent artist. We kept seeing all these lists that had a more negative twist about the challenges of the music industry and why the music industry sucks and things like that. We felt like we needed to make a more positive list because I do think it's the best time ever to be an independent creator. And the first reason on my list was just the amount of revenue streams that are available to independent creators these days. They're artists are making money in so many different kind of ways, when back in the day it was just like, you know, slang CDs, you know, you might do some shows and you might do some merch. That was about it. You know, now people are on SoundDrop and streaming and Patreon and Twitch, and you know, there's just so many ways to make money. You really just have to figure out your lane. I mean, you might have another passion in fashion where you lean in more on the merch side, and you know, the music becomes a funnel into and promotion for the merch, which becomes the biggest part of your business. So I just think it's so cool that every artist can have like a different revenue mix and a different type of business model. But as we get into 2025, like what kind of planning do you guys do? Or what are you guys hoping to accomplish this year? What are you guys setting things up for?
Yeah, so we're taking a lot of big swings. We looked at 2024 as kind of like, we look at it the same way we look at it as if you're a company. You know what I mean? So it's like setting the frameworks of what the various, like, you know, the legal, the shows, the publishing, like you want to build the framework around what your brand identity is. So like King Coyote, like when we first started working together, we were like, we want to have him do, you know, 6 months of shows. We were like, he loves the road. So I was like, great, boom. 3 months of co-writing, you know, so that way he can build a catalog and, you know, network. And then he was like, he's a big surfer. So he was like, dude, it would be sick if I could just like surf for 3 months.
Nice.
And so kind of, you know, and you guys can check him out. He's like got that vibe. And, you know, what we found was he's a surfer from Portland, Maine. So like for folks wherever, it's like cold as fuck there. There's like, it's a lot different than what you think of surfing. It's putting on a wetsuit that is covering your whole body. It's snowing. It's like the rural woods. It's like country meets surf. And that's his music. And so we wanted to now start to connect into that world via partnerships and collaborations. The surfing world is a very, like we kind of like everybody, it's very small world. Like, you know, it's like you look at artists like Donovan Frankenreiter, Jack Johnson, like these guys have had careers in that surf like world, from like, you know, doing, you know, collaborating with other pro surfers and doing like, so that's kind of where we're like kind of taking a play. We want to go out and surf. So we're doing a lot of video content. In the new year, he's coming down to Puerto Rico. We're going to do 5 shows, and we're actually going to be spotlighting some awesome surfers from Puerto Rico who are going to be doing edits to some of his videos. Nice. We're going to do the videos, and then we go, hey, do you guys just like want to use our song and like get it out to your audience? We're providing value to them, and also like we're also building connections. Like we're going to do some free shows down here, and then we're going to have like some short form content that our record label keeps asking us for about like kind of going over the trip, and knowing that we're having those things in place, we're now also able to reach out to brands in the surf world, in the lifestyle world, to be like, hey, listen, we only have like, our audience isn't big, but we're creating a direct, really strong relationship. So I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't have 1 million followers. I worked on the partnership side on the spirits industry. The most important thing is liquid to lips. So if you have an artist who can sell 100 tickets, to any of you here, if you could sell 100 tickets, like you can probably get a spirits sponsor. That's a valuable asset. And I think we need to kind of like, as a whole, as managers, as artists, like, we have a lot we can provide value, like in that case. So big plan is doing all that connecting more in that world, and just a lot of shows. That's really kind of the name of the game, and hopefully maybe some surfing as well and whatnot.
So one of the things I want to point out, and it's come up twice in this interview already, is it seems like you really understand the importance of aligning incentives, right? You really understand the incentives of the people that you're negotiating with or working with. You mentioned it one time with the venues, right? Like, that they're trying to sell as many drinks as possible, right? So that gave you a different positioning in terms of your negotiation with the door sales, right? Now you're talking about aligning incentives with spirits companies for potential brand partnerships. What's most important to them is, what did you say? You said bottle to lips, right? You need
liquid to lips. They want, like, brands want trial, and it's same with most brands. They want trial. Like, it's the same thing with us as as artist people and in the music world. It's trial. We want people to listen to our thing, to give it a shot.
So, I mean, this is very important just with negotiation in general. And people might have heard me say this before, but you have to understand how to align incentives. It makes negotiating that much easier. It gets people on the same page so everybody can come out with a win-win, and you can develop long-standing relationships, and you're not constantly going to like different brands every single time because they weren't happy, right? Super important. The other thing I want to point out, just from you commenting about your year, is I can tell you're excited about the year. You're excited, it seems like, because you guys have continued to build on small wins. You have good direction on what it is you're doing, what you're trying to do. You have a good understanding of the story that you're trying to tell. And it sounds like everybody's on the same page. And I think that's where some of that excitement comes from. Let me know if I'm part right, wrong. The energy is just super positive.
Yeah. I mean, the energy's gotta be, because it's like the hardest job, dude. I did a lot of other jobs. This one is like the hardest. It's definitely the most rewarding, but you have to be stoked on it. It's not, like, it just won't work if you're a manager and you're like not hyped on your artist. It's just like not going to work. If you're an artist and you're like not hyped on like what you're doing in general, or like your team, or like anything, if you're just not stoked, it's just not going to work. Like, that's just the reality.
You're not going to have this level of enthusiasm if you're just kind of stonewalled, or you just don't know what you're doing, right? Yeah. If you guys are coming into the year, it really makes a lot of sense to take a step back. Even if you don't have a manager, if you're just doing this by yourself, take a step back and really understand, like, what message are you trying to share with the world? What's the story that you're trying to share? Because with King Coyote, he mentioned a few different things of where he's from. He surfs, so he's really leaning into that. And obviously, since he surfs, it's probably a little easier to get him to do that kind of content, because that's what he loves to do anyway.
It's all a long con. If you watching, it's all a long con to like have him do content. we'll just do like a surf trip, and like we'll videotape it. And he's like, all right, cool. I guess I'll do a TikTok around that.
Yeah, no, if you tap into the things that they genuinely love, then it's a lot easier to get this stuff done. One of the things that the comedian that I work with, Big Jaw, loves is boxing, right? So we're working on a boxing reality show where we're actually going to get people that have issues with each other to fight in real life. And he's super excited about it because he loves boxing. So it's like, oh, that's an easy win. Like when you're a manager and you're trying to get your artists to do things that they're not really fans of, it's like pulling teeth, and it's probably not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to suck. So it's not worth doing it either because they're not going to put their full energy into it. And, it's probably going to fall flat anyway.
From experience, yes.
So yeah. So what, obviously I'm working with you and Ray now. We have Game from the Gods in LA. Probably should use this time to do a little quick plug. We're bringing the Game from the Gods tour to LA for Grammy Week on January 30th. Tickets are available now. If you follow me on Instagram, the link is in my bio. Make sure you pull up. I know a lot of people that host events say, you got to get your tickets ASAP, and you don't really have to get your ticket ASAP. But I promise you, this event is going to be packed. Ray knows a lot of people here. I'm from here. There's just a lot of artists in general in the LA area. This should be our biggest event yet. I'm looking forward to it. So make sure you get your ticket ASAP. But how did the partnership start with you and Ray, and how does that starting to come together?
Yeah, so I started working with Ray. I actually got introduced to him through my executive coach, Michelle, who I work with, who also works with Ray. At that time I was predominantly really focused on like music exec PR. And, if anybody doesn't follow Ray, like, please do. It's like straight up like the most electric shit on the internet. Like, if you are like in the music industry or just like in general, just like, he never holds back. That's why I think we work so well together. He was in a very interesting situation where he was at a major label. It was like really a not so great situation kind of, played out. And he kind of bet on himself and was like, I want to create this podcast and this media platform and put himself out there and actually tell his own story for the first time. So, I came on board to, help with that, his executive profile, kind of helping guide the narrative of kind of like what Ray was doing. We ended up, it was a huge year for him. Like the podcast, like doubled in audience size. Ray was, separate as his own independent guy, named to the Billboard Power Players, which, he was probably the only one not, from a major on that, or from a big company, and, from there I started to just, see like what, there's so much, if you're an artist, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are someone trying to make it in the music industry or make it on your own, he has 3 different shows where he's like, he's an expert in the field and he's like giving free game, like to exactly, if you're in LA, you definitely, and we're not just saying the tickets are going fast. Like I get the emails and like they're flying. This is not like other music conferences. Like Ray's key, value is making sure that the music industry isn't gate kept in the way that he has seen it for many years. He believes that this information should be democratized. Like a lot of these music conferences are hundreds of dollars. They're subsidized by people who are already in the industry. And it leaves like people like me who are an independent manager, independent non-label guy, all of you probably who are independent artists, like out of the picture. That's specifically why Dame and Ray made the pricing so accessible. They want to like when everybody's succeeding, the music industry is succeeding. And we have found that over the last couple of years with everything that's going on, like that's not the way. So we're trying to kind of get ahead of it and, make it very accessible to folks. So, it's been a year and now I'm helping with all the podcasts and partnerships and marketing but I'm stoked. I'm definitely trying to come out to LA and be boots on the ground for that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a very candid conversation. After doing 3 Game from the God events in DC, Atlanta, and New York, I would say that each one just kind of takes on a life of its own. There's no panels. It's all like live interactive sessions. Sometimes we play games. Sometimes we give away prizes, allow people to perform, allow people to pitch themselves. So it's a lot of fun. It's not like, your typical conference. We allow everybody to participate. If you want to participate, there's room participation the whole way through. So January 30th in LA for Grammy Week. The ticket link is in my bio. I hope to see folks there. It's going to be packed. I mean, I know a lot of people just from my own guest list, it's going to be long. So please get your tickets ASAP if you plan on coming. What other things are you excited about this year, Joe? What other things you got going on?
All right. Well, we got a lot with the Coyote Man with Ray. We're going to be really hoping to do a lot more of these live events. Mm-hmm. We want to go boots on the ground to the people, directly to the people. So we're looking to touch people in real life. So I'll be, doing a lot of booking and assisting on booking all that. And, so if you're anywhere listening and you want to, have us come into town, like, shoot me a DM or shoot us a note, get with us on our platforms. And then a lot of, just helping, artists in general, it's like being a resource, for them. I used to be on the receiving end of like some of the worst pitches for sponsorships and partnerships like you've ever seen from like big real companies, like big labels would be like, hey, we're looking to get a spirits partner for our music video. I'm like, great, send over the deck. They're like, we don't have a deck. And I go, okay, cool. How much are you looking for? What do we get in return? They go $10,000. I was like, okay, when you need it? And they're like, tomorrow. I'm like, they don't fundamentally understand how real businesses work. So yeah. I want to help, more artists, to be able to kind of speak that language of, how to communicate with brands.
Well, let's jump into that really quick. Like just high level, what should be like the key points of a successful pitch to a brand, right? If you are putting together a deck, what should the sections be? What do you want to make sure you're communicating if you're reaching out to a brand?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, I'm going to just put let's say I'm a beer company. So I'm going to put my beer company hat on and kind of walk you through of what I would need to see. It's very transferable to other things, but essentially I get a lot of emails a day. I don't know who the heck most of the people coming inbound to me are. So it's about having a deck that, first of all, introduces us in a very concise way, who you are, kind of what your values are or what your brand vibe is. I should be able to be able to look at that slide and be like, okay, here's what Dame's all about, his artistry, what it sounds like, etc. And I'm hooked. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go to the next slide. So what is next is, who is his audience? Like, who are the people? Like, that's what I'm not giving you money to give you money. I'm giving you money because I want access to what your audience is or whatever you're selling me. So that is, in this case, let's say you have a tour coming up, and you're like, here's my demographics on Spotify, on socials. Here's my reach digitally. Here's our history and markets. And it's got to be very concise, pretty, because we lose interest very quick because there's a lot of other people who send us this. I should know who you are and who your audience is. Then I need to know what's in it for me. Why should I do this? So coming to the table with that to them, because this is a big mistake I've noticed, is people will just be like, yo, give me like $5,000 for this tour. And it's like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So it's like, you go to them and you spell it out. Like, they don't have time to guess what you is. So it's like, is it posts, inclusion on all press materials, inclusion on all digital assets? Is it video content that is going with it? Is it exclusive content for that brand channel? Is it, a VIP tasting with the thing? So it's all those things. You have to be very prescriptive about what you're asking for. Go directly to it. It's not like, don't feel bad about it. Like, I literally want to know. I want to know. So then you have your direct ask, and then you kind of, showcase, if you've done this before, of like how it could live, case studies, if you have them. If you don't, no worries. Then it's kind of like what you're asking for in return, So it's like, I need this.
Yeah.
To do that. And, that's keeping it very tight, keeping it streamlined, and then also giving people time. The music, and like, nobody's more last minute than the music industry. Like spirits brands, CPG brands, hospitality brands, like they mostly finish their, like most brands have finished their 2025 planning from a top line perspective, usually by like September. And that's not an excuse to not send it out. A lot of them do have discretionary budgets. So that's not an excuse not to do it. But it's just that's the kind of advanced mentality you need to have to, you know, to put yourself in the best position to kind of like secure a budget for that, or just like promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it and just going back to the aligning of incentives, like I'm really trying to get to a conversation so that I can better understand kind of what these brands want, right? Because sometimes the brand wants something specific to a platform. They're trying to increase their Instagram following, or they're trying to increase their YouTube subscribers, and that will shift your creativity into a whole nother direction in terms of how you can activate your fan base to accomplish the goals that they're trying to accomplish. You know, so if they want to drive up YouTube subscribers, then the focus should shift to your YouTube audience and how you can get them to subscribe to their channel, or, you know, bring people from your other platforms to subscribe to their channel, because that's ultimately what the goal is for them. And you need to understand that. So, but yeah, so I know we only have a little bit more time. Let's just imagine I'm an artist. I just turned the corner in 2024. I still don't really have a plan. I feel like I'm a little all over the place. What should I be doing? Where should I start? How can I create a framework so that I have something to follow and hopefully have a productive 2025? What are some suggestions that you might make?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is like, let's say you're kind of like, let's say you have music, or you have like a general idea of like, I got product to distribute. I would, you know, create kind of like what that brand world is for your artistry, as like, what is that North Star? You know, like what is that North Star of like you as an artist? And then I would basically be like, what are those key messages? Like, what is that shared language that I want everybody to be saying about how I am as an artist? So, you know, that's like, those are the North Stars of like where you want to go. You know, from there, it's once you kind of know where you want to go, you can figure out how to go there. So,
Mhm.
you know, taking a look at like what those, like, you know, you lay out those objectives. So it's like, let's say you are like, you know, I worked with this artist a few years back, actually, Dame, you know, Emilio Rojas, who's
Okay.
like legend. He's awesome. And he's really big into skateboarding. He's very like, you know, very active in like a lot of societal conversations. And so like, he's somebody who like, he didn't do this, but he naturally does this, but it's like focusing on kind of like, okay, skateboarding passion point, like what does that brand world look like? That will influence the art, that will influence the artwork, that will influence how you roll out your music, that will, you know, who you're working with from an influencer perspective, from a press perspective, and, you know, even from a partnership perspective. So kind of like, you know, thinking about what those like vibes are, and then like building a world around that, and then objectives, and then strategies and tactics to get to those objectives. So I want to get, you know, King Coyote in Surfer Mag for a premiere, not Rolling Stone. We want to do it Surfer Magazine. So what is the strategy and tactics for that? So what is that for you? And then from a marketing perspective, I want to generate this many emails. You know, what are tactics we can do? You know, that could be something is at free shows. This is something we've done. We record every show, and a lot of our fans are like big live music junkies. So we're like, we'll give you the show for free if you give us the email.
Mhm.
And so keeping that personal conversation going. So it's those types of things, like reverse engineering it. Cause I've noticed a lot of like artists are afraid to think of themselves as a brand.
Mhm.
That's like a big problem, because like, I'm sorry, but like everybody else in the world like looks at it as a product, and fortunately or unfortunately, it's a product you're selling. So
Yeah.
yeah, once you flick that switch, you can actually like build a company.
Yeah. No, I think what you described is so important. It's so important to have that great understanding of, you know, Ray during Game from the Gods, he calls them pillars. But just those elements of your story that you want to share with the world so that you can have some consistency across all of your touch points, right? Consistency when you do interviews or when you make music or with your merch or when you do content. Like all of it should be telling a consistent stories and come back to the pillars that you want people to know you for. So I think that's super important. Um, as we wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to touch on, or you feel like, or what are some other things that you feel like outside of resisting being called a brand or want to look at it from a branding perspective? Because a lot of artists think it's too corporate or whatever. They just want to be an artist and free flowing. You know, what are some other like mistakes or missteps that artists typically make or fall into?
So I think definitely the first of what you mentioned is like the failure if you want to work in the music business and you're like failure to comprehend or understand that you need to be a business. Like
Hmm.
that's definitely a problem. So I would say if you can like the next other things of that is every business, and once you realize that, understanding that every business or entrepreneur, which most independent artists are, has elements of that that are not fun and suck. So I've noticed that artists will kind of fall into what their comfort zones are as opposed to what is like needed for a business. Like, for example, Amazon, if they didn't like logistics, but they loved marketing, like the company wouldn't work.
Hmm.
So you have to look at what those pillars are of your like, so financing, like it's financials, managing finances, short form. Hey, I just don't like, I see a lot of artists are very uncomfortable marketing their music. Like surprisingly, they're like, well, we don't want to like, it takes 7 times for people to even see something to like maybe even do something. Uh,
Hmm.
and also it's your job, like it's your company. Like don't you need to understand that like marketing is like the key component of music. So understanding marketing, understanding uh data collection, understanding doing your books. You have to be able to do the things that aren't sexy and like everyone's like it's very hard. Yeah, it's hard to own a business and like run a business, but like I hate doing like my accounting at the end of the month. It sucks, but you have to do it if you like want to like do it. So I think understanding that is like a very key. That's like the one piece of advice is like roll up your sleeves and like if you want to do it, you got to do it.
It's easier to do the stuff that sucks when you're really excited about the bigger picture, when you really have like a plan, and maybe especially if you've had a couple of small wins and you start to see it working a little bit. You get much more excited about that and you don't mind doing the stuff that sucks because you start to see the entire plan kind of moving and working. So try to get some early wins in January that will help motivate you and hopefully carry over into bigger wins later in the year.
Dude, it's football moving down the field, dude. Couple yards at a time. Couple yards at a time. Milk, and the clock, there is really no clock, I guess, until you're dead. So just move the football down the field a couple yards every day you can. Like you're gonna start piling up wins. It's just I definitely sometimes you get lost and down. I'm sure. It's highs, lows. But it's moving the football down the field. Not every play can be a chunk 20-yarder.
Yeah, and it's how you kind of separate yourself from the pack. Because I don't know what the number is now on Spotify in terms of how many artists are on there, but I think it's like 11 million or something like that. But I promise you, 80% of them can't lift themselves up to do the things that they don't want to do. And it will make sure that they don't have as much success, no matter how talented they are.
Hustle beat. What I've learned is I've worked with a lot of people who are super talented. Um, hustle beats talent. I've come to learn that. I think if you have a good game plan, you can win. And so that if you have talent and hustle, you will be successful. With the way the music industry now, it is very democratized. There's a lot less gatekeepers. Like it blows my mind. People make excuses about like not getting on a play. There's plenty of people who are very, very successful who I know who have been doing, touring 100 to 200 cap rooms for 20 years who make probably a better living than some people with 1 million monthly listeners. So there's a path for everybody. It's like in 2025, we're like leaving the excuse I'm too busy, I don't want to hear that word, and that we can't do it. We put a man on the moon.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Joe, are you looking for, like, do you have the bandwidth to even work with new artists this year? How do artists get on your radar?
Yeah, so I really try to make an effort to like answer, like I remember, when I was getting and like asking people questions, like DM me on like at Catch Buzz MGMT, like plug in with me. Like I'm in the car a lot driving to shows. I love music. Like send me your music. I do my best to get back to everybody. I do my best to try to listen to everything. Yep, right there. And like ask me questions. I'll try to get back to everybody. And who knows? I'm a big like if the music rocks and I think I can provide value, I'll make it happen. Also, I will not waste anybody's time. So I'm like, hey, bandwidth is busy. Like, we got to we're all very busy. So I'll be very direct and stoked for you to reach out and and try to answer as many questions as I can.
Yes, sir. So I put his Instagram handle in the comment section. It's at CatchBuzzMGMT. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Is that where you're most active?
Yeah, Instagram, and then like my email's on there too. Like I'm much better on email. So tap in with me on IG. That's probably the best place to get me.
No, we have a lot of people on this platform that share their experience and information here, and we're grateful. So thank you for coming on. But there no longer is an excuse that the information's not out there, because there are plenty of solid folks that have great experience that are willing to share all of it with you in a way that didn't exist when I started getting into music. When I got into music in 2008, I didn't have anybody in the music industry to turn to. There was one cat named Propaganda that somebody connected me with. And, he was an independent, he still is an independent artist, kind of doing his thing. I learned a lot from him to get started, but there definitely weren't that many resources. So please take advantage of the quality folks that are willing to share information with you today, because, I don't think people value good information enough, but it can be life-changing if you tap in with the right people. So I think this was a great first episode of 2025. Joe, appreciate you kicking it off. Any last words?
Dude, if you're in LA, Jan 30th, go watch Dame and Ray like drop some knowledge and go say what up. Maybe I'll be there too.
Yeah, definitely. Come to Game from the Gods if you're in LA. It's going to be a great event. We will plan more throughout the year. I don't know where we will go. We haven't put together a schedule yet, but we'll see how LA goes, and then we'll just kind of take it from there. We'll definitely want to try to hit more cities and bring it to smaller markets, because most smaller markets kind of get ignored by the music industry. There's not that many events. So we want to bring it to more cities. But if you're in LA, come through, go to gamefromthegods.com, get a ticket, or click the link in my bio. Until next week, Nyla will be hosting. I believe she's bringing on Wayno. So Nyla always brings on the heavy hitters, in terms of like their social media following. Hopefully they're all great sessions, but Nyla tries to outshine me by bringing on like big names, and Nyla's great. But tap in next week, Monday, 12 p.m., same time. Hopefully everybody had a great new year. Let's get to it this year, y'all. Make it a successful year. Peace.
Thank you, man.